What's up, everybody? We are so excited to have you join us today. It's been 2 very long weeks since I've got to spend time with you. And on top of that, I am super excited about today's presenter. She is no stranger to the webinar series, although in my personal opinion, it's been far too long since we've had the amazing Dr. Margie Smith with us. She is a chiropractor known for her clear, outgoing style of communication, which you are about to be privileged to hear. She has successfully started multiple chiropractic practices, speaks in front of audiences on how to run a low-stress, high-fun chiropractic practice, has a passion for not only helping her chiropractic patients achieve better health and wellness, but also in helping chiropractic practices transition into the practice of their dreams. Basically, she makes your dreams come true. And nobody makes it look as much fun as she does to being in practice. I mean, don't get me wrong, you guys all make it look fun, but not quite as much fun as she does. Man, you make it look like a party, Dr. Margie.
Well, thank you. It is sometimes.
And I just want y'all to know that she's speaking all over the place in the next couple of months. And I'm so excited because she sent me her schedule and I'm going to be in some of those places too.
Yay!
Yay. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to make myself disappear. And Dr. Margie, take it away.
Oh, Christy, thank you so much for that very, very sweet introduction. As always, everybody who's joined us today, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the webinar. My goal today is to share some great nuggets and share some great information that can help you in your practices and ultimately, again, make your practice a happier, more fun place to be every day. So we're going to go through and we're going to review these 5 secrets to how to run a low overhead, high profit, stress-free practice. And the one thing that really people are drawn to these days is that idea of it being stress-free. We have all been under a lot of stress these days, no matter what. It's just been a tough time for some of us. And some of us in business, especially as small business owners, have had a challenge over the last 1.5 years or so. So this is a quote from somebody that I worked with my company, the MicroPractice, and just talked a little bit about how he was so grateful to have the new model of practice that he was in versus having to rely on what he previously had in his career, which previously he was in a high insurance, high overhead practice, and he was like, man, my numbers are down, but I'm at least still doing okay right now. So I'm going to talk a little bit more, and I'll review again what this idea of having a micro practice means, but just keep this in mind. The stuff that I'm sharing today isn't just for people who want a smaller version of a practice per se. Some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about applies to everybody and anybody in practice. Today, more than ever, our practices need to be as sustainable as possible because, again, we have no idea what's going to happen to us in the future. So let's start getting through some of this material and start reviewing it on. First, I like to talk about who I found some of these things have really worked well for. So for people who are struggling in practice, again, the last 1.5 years has really pulled out the struggle in many of us. So if that's how you're feeling, some of this is going to apply to you. Somebody who's an associate wanting to start their own practice, maybe you've been an associate for years now, and you're just ready to take that next step into practice. Well, some of this info that I'm about to share is great for you as well. Are you better than an associateship? Now, what do I mean by that? Better than, I don't mean it in a egotistical way, but you know what? I had some classmates in my chiropractic college graduating class. Boy, they were ready to open their own practices. They worked hard. They shadowed a ton of chiropractors. They focused on it. They were ready to do it. They didn't necessarily feel like they need to go through an associateship. So is that something that you're feeling listening to this? Or are you stressed in practice like so many of us are because we are just wearing so many different hats as we go through our day-to-day in practice? Or are you like me? Are you all of those things? So I was once all of those things that I just described. And now I'm also this. I'm a mom and a chiropractor. And boy, that means that sometimes I feel like I literally have the weight of my family on my shoulders while I'm practicing, or while I was practicing the way I used to practice. And so that's really what motivated and inspired me to change the way that I practiced and change the model that I practiced. And I found that over time, people were really eager and excited to hear about this model of chiropractic that I call a micropractice. And again, it's not even just the concept of being a small office, but more so the systems that I applied and the things I created to make this work so well. So a little bit about me. I am from the amazing city of Chicago, is where I was born and raised. And Chicago was where I was married in 2004, and also where I started my first chiropractic practice. My practice is pictured there. It was this beautiful, cute little quaint office that was a second floor suite in a building in downtown Chicago. So in a 1 mile radius of that office, I had 25 other chiropractors in a 1 mile radius. So there's a lot of other people there who did, similar to what I did, or called themselves what I called myself. And that practice was a huge success because I worked really hard at it. But boy, I was there every day during the week for sure. I was there from 7 a.m. until probably 6 or 7 at night. Sometimes in the evenings, I would go to networking events or business mixers or different functions just to kind of get my name out there. That practice was started from like the ground up. So I had staff. I had, payroll that I had to manage. I had insurance that I was a part of. So that was a more insurance dependent practice. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means and the difference between that versus the cash-based practice. So that was my first practice. I was there for a couple of years before we decided to move out of Chicago. I sold that practice and we moved to beautiful San Diego. We were in San Diego for a little bit, and I started to work as an independent contractor with another chiropractor. And that was great because I had the opportunity to work with somebody else and learn from somebody else and grow with somebody else, but then also had the ability to make my own business and make my own hours, get my own patients, collect, my own percentage based on what we had agreed upon. So it was a really, really great setup. Shortly after starting that practice, I found out I was pregnant with my first child. And so great experience, great place to raise kids and have kids. But we found pretty quickly after that, it just wasn't a great time for me to be in practice. It just was a little too much work, a little too much effort for me to be in practice. So I decided to sell that practice to the person that I had worked with as an independent contractor and decided to stay home. And I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. And that was really great for about 8 months before I really started to feel just the need to go out and go do something else. And, maybe if it wasn't practice, I just wanted to get back out there and do something. And so I found an amazing opportunity with a company called ChiroPractic, which Christy and everybody at ChiroHealthUSA is very familiar with because the two companies are really great, strong partners in chiropractic. And so I had this amazing opportunity to work as their director of business development. And I held that role for about 8.5 years before I finally let it go. But it was a wonderful opportunity, great experience. I learned a lot of what I applied now into my current practice from working at Cash Practice. So I really learned from who I consider to be the master in running a cash-based practice. And that is one of the features and highlights of the practice that I have now today. So now today, I live with my family in Northern California, not too far from wine country. We're kind of like a little on like the outskirts of wine country. We're just outside of Sacramento. And I started my own practice here about 5 years ago. There is my cute, adorable family. You can see a picture of me and my husband, Lauren. He and I have been married since 2004. And we have 3 amazing daughters who are 7, 9, and 11 years old. So yes, we have lots of dress-up parties and play lots of dolls and games and just have a great life. It's a ton of fun with these cuties. So this is where I am today. This is where a picture of you seeing me standing is my office. On the video, if you see my little picture or video, you can see in the background is the same green wall that you see on that picture. I'm in my office. This is the office that I work out of every single day, or the days that I want to work here. And this is what I call my micropractice. So what I do is I rent a room from another chiropractor. This room that you see free, is for my use only. So my name is on the door that I'm working here, and I get to set my own hours, see my own patients, collect my own money. I don't have any staff. I do everything all on my own. So I'm a one-woman show, and it has worked extremely well for where we are in life. And ultimately, this is absolutely the most fun and the most rewarding and fulfilling practice I've ever had in my career so far. So let's talk about these 5 secrets, and let's kind of break down what each one of them is going to review. So we're talking about how to run a low overhead, stress-free, high profit practice. Again, these concepts can be applied to no matter what kind of office you have. Now, some things may not apply because maybe you have staff, or maybe you have a larger space, etc. But there's some nuggets that I'll have throughout this time that you can apply no matter what the practice is. So get ready to learn, get ready to jot down some notes if you would like to. Also know that if you have any questions throughout this time, feel free to put them into kind of the bar off to the side, and Christy can give me a little gentle nudge to interrupt me and let me know that somebody has a question, and I'm happy to answer those as well. But let's get to it, and let's get into this material and content, and it's going to be a ton of fun. So the 5 secrets I break down into these different steps. I say, first and foremost, set it and forget it. That means systemize so much stuff. Number 2, talk about money, and specifically talk about money with your patients, which, sometimes can be a little bit of an awkward kind of a topic. Number 3, let's keep the overhead bar low, and we'll review some ways that you can do that. Number 4, you get to just be the doctor when you run a practice like this. And number 5, you get to build your life versus feeling like the practice is owning you. You own yourself. You're the boss of yourself, and you get to kind of build out the life and the schedule that's going to work best for you. So first and foremost, setting it and forgetting it.
If you followed all the instructional material, you just...
So I'm a kid of the 80s and 90s, and I love videos and memes and just silly things like this. So I was a big fan of this Ronco guy when he made these chicken rotisserie things. But ultimately, setting and forgetting it means that you put in a lot of systems into your practice. Now, when I started this MicroPractice 5 years ago, I didn't know that this is what I was creating. I just my husband and I got together and said, okay, I was feeling this demand to open a practice just as I met more people and they heard that I was a chiropractor. Everybody's like, where's your practice? There's not somebody like you around here. I really want to come see you. And so I thought, okay, well, let's, we had saved, a little bit of money for me to start another practice again. And we just said, let's just see if I could do this on this little bit of savings we have for this practice, without having to go out and get a huge loan and all this other stuff. Let's just see what I can go do. And so as I went through this process over the course of months and years, starting this practice, I really started to realize, boy, I've built out these amazing systems. And so here are some of the ways that I make things really work very easily and seamlessly in my practice. So first and foremost, from a systems perspective, you have to go paperless. Now, paperless is more than just having an EHR or an EMR. Paperless means you literally don't have any paper anywhere. Now, I did take some notes on, a sheet here today with a patient because I wanted to jot some things down, but I know later I'm going to take those notes, I'm going to input them into her patient chart that I'm going to keep online and store online, because ultimately having too much paper and having all these manila files like we used to have, where are you going to put that? I mean, if I needed to do that, well, then I would have to rent another room that is the storage room, right? That has all the file cabinets and all the manila folders, and it's just very old school. So I know that the majority of people on here likely already have an EHR or an electronic medical record, but they say on average about 80%, only 80%. So there's still about 20% of providers who are still without one. So if you fall in that category, I highly encourage you to go get one. There are some out there that are so inexpensive and just do easily what you have to do if you're a cash-based practice. So I don't bill insurance and I don't have to worry about that feature of EHRs necessarily. But at the same time too, if I do have a patient fill something out, then I simply scan it in kind of the scanning scanner that I have here off to my side. I have them scan it, and then I attach that document into their EHR, and then I shred that document. So I have no need to keep any paper in my office anymore. And I'll tell you what, it has saved loads of time, and I just don't like having clutter all over. So I just love having that feeling of everything being kind of cleared out. So paperless is a huge way to go. Number 2, train your patients. Now, everybody trains their patients, whether you know that you do or not. Your office has like a system that patients kind of figure out as they become new patients and establish patients in your office. Now, with my type of setup, I have to train my patients on what to expect. So they know up front that I'm a one-woman show. They know that the best way to schedule is online, or if they really need to, then they can text me directly. They know that when they are scheduled with me, they are scheduled with me. They are not, I don't have this, oh, they're going to come late or they're going to come early thing. They are scheduled to see me, right? So here's an example of somebody who was trained, supposedly this dog was trained, but wasn't really following instructions in this video, right? So this is not what we want our offices to do. Even if you are the traditional chiropractic model, it is very important that not only you train your patients what to expect, but you stick to it, right? Like if we tell our kids something, oh, don't do that, but your kid just does that you told them not to, well, you got to set boundaries. You got to stick to it, right? So, what I was saying earlier is my patients know that if they're scheduled to see me at 9:15, my time with them starts at 9:15. So if they show up at 9:20, their 15-minute slot doesn't get extended to 9:35. Their slot ends at 9:30 because I then have a 9:30 person scheduled. I schedule people, next. And I personally allow 15 minutes with each patient, and everybody knows that. So I don't have people late. I have people who come early sometimes thinking like, oh, maybe, Dr. Margie can work me in a little bit earlier, which I'm always happy to do if I can. But ultimately, if somebody is late, they know that however much time they're late, they're losing that portion of their appointment. I'm not going to now run late for the rest of my day because you were late coming in to see me. So, so that's one thing where I say it's important to train your patients and know, so that your patients know what to expect, and ultimately the relationship is just a better one on the other end. Give the advice once. So what does that mean? Well, it means instead of doing something like this, where we have everybody lined up and, that horse is giving the same advice to everybody individually, we don't want this, we want this, right? Where you are able to broadcast to all of your patients the things that you say. Now, what do I mean by that? I was finding myself over the course of the first couple of months and years in my MicroPractice, I found myself giving people the same recommendations over and over again, but to different people. They're asking me about supplements they should take, or my pregnant patients are wondering what pillow is good for them to use, or all kinds of stuff. And I just thought, gosh, I am just wasting my time sending a follow-up email or like stopping and writing things down for them. And so what I ended up doing was I created this awesome page on my website that is what's called my resources tab. And so very commonly throughout my day, what my patients will hear me say over and over again is they'll say, you know what, the answer to that question is on my resources tab. Go to my website, hit resources, and you'll see a drop down that'll give you all of the local providers that I recommend. So whether it's a massage therapist, acupuncturist, dentist, I put all their contact information on my website. If they want to know a supplement recommendation or some prenatal videos or yoga videos or things like that. And if you go to my website, you can see it for yourself as well. My office website is www.granitebaychiro.com, and you can go to my resources page and see what I've built out. And I can't tell you the amount of time it has saved me in practice, especially when I'm looking at my time and saying, okay, I want to make my time as efficient with each patient, still giving great quality of service and quality of care. What can I just make go away? What can I put somewhere else? And putting that page on my website has been a huge game changer. And I'm constantly updating that page. I have kind of an ongoing list of things that I add to that page all the time because, new things pop up on a very regular basis. So I highly recommend that. And again, anybody can do that for their practice. And it just saves you, again, that much more time with each patient, which means you can see more people serve more people, make more money, but have it just be less stressful because you don't have to sit there and keep writing things down over and over and over again. Cool. So now let's talk about money. But talk about money and don't let patients touch their wallets. So first and foremost, the girl's awkward face is there for a reason, because it could just be it could be awkward to talk to people about money, talk to patients about money. Now, in your office, it all depends on whose role that is. So in my office, obviously, that's my role with my patients, is I talk to them about money. I talk to them about what things are, how much things are going to cost up front, and what to expect, and how they can pay for it, etc. But the second part of it is I don't want them to touch their wallets. Now, what I mean by that is every single time a person has to take a credit card out and give it to you, give it to your staff person, subconsciously, they're making a decision if they still want to keep coming back. Every single time they have to take that credit card out. And this is something that Dr. Miles Bodson teaches a lot on when he's speaking on stage for cash practice systems. And he learned and really dove in a lot into this material on how the act of just paying every time, paying per visit, really will reduce a person's overall retention and a patient's overall retention, or practice's overall retention, because those patients don't have a tendency to be really great long-term patients. It's the patient who you can, keep their credit card on file or create a plan for them that then just debits monthly or however you set it up. Those are the patients that you'll retain year after year after year. And in my experience, that couldn't be more true. So when we talk about money and we want to, keep their payment source on file, what you first need more than any of that is you need to have goals linked to money. So I love goals and I love setting goals because it ultimately comes down to this. So in my practice, I do usually a two-day new patient experience, right? So day one is they come in for consultation and examination. Prior to day one, they fill out all their intake information online. So everything just stays in my EHR system. But everything is, that first day is all about investigating what is going on with them, investigating what I find clinically, what we find in their history, etc. And I also spend time talking to them about what their overall health and wellness goals are. So yes, I know you've come in to see me because of your lower back and because, you've got XYZ happening. Tell me what your overall goals are, right? And so if their goals are, I just want to get out of pain. Okay, well then I formulate my plan based on what those goals are. If their pain is, well, I want to get this pain removed, but I also want to help strengthen and stabilize this so it doesn't come back year after year. I also want to help improve my overall weight and my endurance, and I want to run a 10K or whatever their goals are. I literally write all those things down, because it's when you get to these clinical goals with patients that you can then formulate your best clinical recommendations. And then those all step into your financial plans that you may create for the patients. Now, not everybody does care plans or financial care plans, and that's okay if you don't. I would say in my experience, those financial care plans up front do help save a whole lot of time, effort, and money down in the long run with the patient. And what's nice is once you start having everything formulated around these clinical goals in practice, well, now it's even that much easier when you say, okay, well, you want to accomplish all these things, and I'm explaining how chiropractic can be a part of that. It is no surprise to them when you say, I'm going to have to see you, 2 times a week for the first 6 weeks, let's say, and then the subsequent 6 weeks, I'm going to see you weekly. Nobody in my office is like, oh my gosh, that's so much care. Everybody at that point is like, yeah, all right, great. That's what I was expecting. Yeah, let's just get started. Let's get this thing going. So if you change that one thing, again, regardless of what kind of a practice model you have, if you change setting goals and then communicating those goals with patients, you will see a tremendous change in your patient retention. And with that, you'll see so much unbelievable improvement in a person's health overall down the road. So set goals, and then you can attach those goals to clinical recommendations to a financial plan. Cool. So payment source on file. Now, here's where you can have them avoid touching their wallets, meaning that they're not giving their credit card over to you every single time. And now, to have a payment source on file is just such a nice, easy thing for everybody involved. Everybody is not only, that much happier and that much more carefree, just because it's one less thing that people have to kind of do when they come into your practice. So I relate it to this gentleman who's coming in, and, he's happy. He's having a good time. He's super excited, right? Because he's carefree, right? And I think that's like coconut water that he has in that bottle that he has in his hand. But that ultimately is what the goal is have things just be a lot easier. Now, hang on, I'm going to pop back over to this gentleman here just for a second, because I'm going to set up what we're going to talk about next, which is the overhead bar. Okay, so let's take a look at this video here to the left. You can see this guy jumping, and he is clearing this moat, and boom, he is excited. And that's what a lot of chiropractors feel like when they are trying to clear their overhead in practice, in their practices. They might feel like this guy does. So let's just watch that one more time. Here he goes. He's making it halfway through his month. Oh, I'm going to clear my overhead. Am I going to get it? I'm going to get it. Yes, I did. Look at this. And he's excited, and a lot of people are excited just like he would be, right? So that's what I say the traditional overhead might look like in a chiropractic office, or what it feels like to some business owners. I know that's what it felt like when I was in my first practice in Chicago. My overhead was $12,000 a month. And that was for not only, the space and the utilities, but that was for all the insurances that I had to cover and everybody's salaries and bonuses and all that kind of stuff. So, clearing $12,000 a month for a new grad out of college, it was tough. I definitely felt like that guy a lot of times, where I was like, whoa, I did it. We made it, right? So that's where traditional is. The next video I'm going to show you is a little bit more of what I feel like my overhead is right now, is in my MicroPractice. This is what it's like. Now, make sure you don't blink or don't look away from the screen, because you might miss it. So here's this guy. He's getting ready to clear a MicroPractice overhead, and yep, there it goes. That's it. So that's quite literally how I feel in my practice today. My overhead bar changed from what was $12,000 a month to now my current overhead is just about $1,500 a month. And so that changes my level of stress, worry, etc. That changes it dramatically. I don't have any staff that I have to pay, etc. So we're going to go through some ways that you can look into possibly keeping your overhead bar as low as possible. In my office, for example, I have to adjust 30 patients a month to make my overhead. And so I typically will see that many patients in a couple of days. And so by then, the rest of it is just kind of gravy, which is amazing. And that's been the case since I began this practice 5 years ago. When I started this practice 5 years ago, my first and second month, I lost money, or I was in the red. And then by my third month, I made money, and I have made money ever since. And it's nice because just because I have a lower overhead, because I'm only paying for this one room, I don't have to worry about, other staff or utilities or any of that kind of stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean that I reduce my cost or what I charge patients. I've been a chiropractor for 17 years. I have a specialty in pediatrics and pregnancy. Women drive over an hour to see me sometimes, because there aren't a lot of people who do the same thing that I do in this area. So I'm not going to reduce what I charge them because my overhead is lower. No, I think I made a smarter business decision by keeping my overhead extremely low right now. And in the future, if I do ever want to unplug my practice out of here and maybe get a larger space somewhere, I totally can. But for now, it's been really nice not having to stress about hitting that overhead bar month after month after month. So one way that you can look at keeping your overhead bar low is having minimal employees. And, in some cases like mine, 0. Now, I don't want everyone to now go and just fire your CAs. Please don't go do that. CAs are wonderful. And in the right practice, you absolutely, it might be vital for you to have your CA. If you have a practice where you're seeing hundreds of people a day or a week, I mean, yeah, next to impossible to do without staff. I'm seeing at the highest end right now, probably 60 people a week right now. But, you know, if it got up to 100 a week, you know, I can see where I'd be like, oh no, I might start thinking about getting a staff person to help me out a little bit. So, but my point is if you're in that category that you're maybe like a newer grad, a parent who's looking to get back into chiropractic, an associate looking to open your own practice again, you can start with this small, simple model like a MicroPractice, keep your overhead extremely low, and then just kind of build and grow on that as time goes on. So that's kind of, you know, that's kind of my advice when it comes to, you know, trying to keep things as small as possible. Get only the space that you need. Boy, people get really big office spaces in my experience. I just enjoy going into chiropractic offices. You know, if I'm on vacation or if I'm in some new area and I see a chiropractor, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go in there and go say hi. And I've done that my entire career, even when I was a student. And I was always so blown away at how much space people had. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is wasted. Not to criticize anybody, but gosh, a lot of space is just kind of like doing nothing. So when I decided I wanted to open this practice in the town I'm in, I said, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this all on my terms. And one of my big terms was that the office needed to be very close to where we lived and where our children's schools were. So I found a couple of chiropractors, introduced myself, went into their offices, and the space that I eventually rented the first space in, that I'll show you a picture of here in a minute, it was when I first saw the space, I met with the chiropractor. He showed me around the office and he opened up this door to a room and it was just filled with boxes. And I said, what are you doing with this room? And he said, oh, it's just like a storage room. I said, well, if you empty all these boxes out of here, I'll rent it from you. And he's like, really? I said, yeah, sure. And that's how I got my office space. Was I literally, not convinced, but I planted the seed in that chiropractor's mind of, hey, let me use this space. I mean, you're just using it for boxes. That's crazy. You can make money on that space instead. So this is where my first office was here locally. So I was renting a room from, you'll see Nevius Chiropractic. That was the main office name. And then there's my name underneath, Dr. Margie Smith, family pediatric chiropractor. So then I put my name on the door that I rented. And like I said, you opened this door before and it was like a big space of just, you know, boxes and stuff. But then you open it up and that was it. I had this tiny, tiny, tiny room. I'm very grateful that the room that I'm in right now is much bigger and a lot cozier than, a lot more comfortable. This little office was really cozy. I think that the dimensions of that office were like 8 by 11. So there was not a lot more that I was putting in that room besides that table and stool and my dry spine. And I think I had like a little desk in there and maybe another kind of cabinet, but that was pretty much it. So I kept my overhead really low by literally using a very, very tiny space. Now we luckily, like I said, moved locations. Now we're in another office suite. Now I have a much bigger space that works a lot better for me. But ultimately, you know, I think it's maybe $200 more here than I did there a month. Great. Totally worth it for how much more space I get. So you want to keep that in mind. Try to use as little space as possible. Or if you are a chiropractor who you're listening to this and you're like, man, I do have a lot of wasted space, start cleaning it out. Start posting messages places saying, you know, hey, I'm looking for a chiropractor to help fill my space with me. And, you know, we have a great office and a great space. Because this became very, when I would explain to chiropractors what a MicroPractice was and what my office was, I was really surprised by how many people were really intrigued by this idea. And having a space where it's my own business. So I'm my own LLC, I'm incorporated, I have all my own licenses and everything. My only relationship with the chiropractor here is paying rent. So I sublease from her. I pay her a monthly rent. That's it. So we do not share any percentages. It's not independent contractors at all. It is strictly two separate businesses completely. So if you, on the flip side, have space that you can start to kind of get rid of and fill up, Totally do that. And that's another way that you can start reducing your overhead, because now you can have somebody come in and help cover some of your monthly rent every month. So another way that I keep my overhead bar low is minimal marketing needs. Now, at first, of course, so here's a picture first of what marketing calendars used to look like for me, right? I had kind of repeating events every single week. I'd go to BNI meetings or LATIP meetings or whatever business networking meetings that I can go to. I'd do lunch and learns at people's offices that I would set up. I would sign up for weekend events where I'd have a booth at a 5K, spinal screenings all over the place. I mean, I was just doing tons of marketing, especially in those first two practices. I really did a lot because, my first practice, Chicago, gosh, I had to, because I had to cover that monthly overhead that I talked about. Here, of course, I went and marketed. Of course, I went and networked, and I got to know some people. But I focused my networking very specifically on who I say my best business partner was, right? And that came because I created a clear definition of who my ideal patient was going to be, who I loved seeing, who my favorite people were to see when I was practicing previously. The great news is now I have an entire practice of those people. I don't have one person who comes into my practice today that I don't love seeing, because I've created a practice full of those people. And after I realized what I loved, then I realized, well, there are other people in my area who work with the same people that I like to work with. And how can I connect with those people? So for example, for my style of practice, I connected pretty quickly with the doulas and midwives and acupuncturists, massage therapists who see pregnant women. I connected with all of those people pretty quickly, and the referrals just naturally started kind of coming in. So it didn't take very long. And like I said earlier on, it just doesn't take very much for me to start covering my overhead and start making then some. So that's the other nice thing about this type of a model, is you really don't have to market as much, because you just don't have this huge overhead to cover anymore. Now, if you're in a traditional model and you want to help improve the types of patients coming in, do what I just said earlier. That means identify your ideal patient. Find out where those people are, find out who else they work with, start marketing and networking with those types of people, and start forming, mutual relationships so you can refer people back and forth to each other. So let's go into topic number 4, which is, by doing some of the things that we just discussed, the amazing thing is that you just get to be the doctor. You just get to connect with cute little babies like this. If you like seeing babies, I do, but you get to connect with people like this and patients like this. And it's, like I said, in my experience, what has made this the absolute most fulfilling practice I've ever been in my career up to this point. So the connection I have with my patients is stronger than it's ever been. I am very grateful and always blessed to be invited to patients like big family events and birthday parties or recitals and performances and stuff. They think so highly of me that they want me to be a part of these things with them. And I just, again, this is like the practice of my dreams, is to have that kind of connection with people. Retention, my patients stick with me. They stick with me a very long time. I'm seeing patients as they are starting their families and growing their families, and then their children come in, and then their spouses come in. And it has just been, again, extremely rewarding, because the retention of all these, similar types of patients grow these, friendships that my patients are making amongst each other. And it's just really cool to see that happen when they're waiting to come in and get adjusted and saying, oh, let's schedule our appointments for the same time so our kids can all play together again. So they're having these little, chiropractic play dates in our playroom, which again has been so much fun and just makes my heart warm to see that sort of thing happening here in my community. Referrals become just really easy and seamless in my practice now. And what's cool is I always wanted to be somebody who was, known in the community as the chiropractor who helps families raise healthy kids and help raise healthy families. And by having that kind of reputation that I've built myself over the last 5 years, I go out, someplace to some, like, a soccer game or a community event. And, these little patients come running up to me and they're like, Dr. Margie, Dr. Margie. And they're so excited and they introduce me to their friends. Or, my girls will come home from school and they'll say, oh, so-and-so came up to me today and said that they were a patient of yours. And, it makes me proud. I might start crying, but it makes me proud that, I've created something that makes my family proud of me, and they're proud when they hear that, these friends of theirs are patients of mine. And, they'll say, oh, I'm so proud of you that you have, such a nice office. And so, it's the practice I always wanted to create for myself. And it's just been the absolute most fun ever. And one of the best parts of all of these things that will lead up to is how I have been able to ultimately build really the best version of my life with a practice involved. So not only do I have a great practice, but I'm able to keep everything going for my family that they need, for my own social life, or my own our own life outside of like work and family, like other things that I enjoy doing, exercising, connecting with friends, traveling, etc. I'm able to do those things without there being, really much drop or loss within my own business, right? If I take a week off somewhere throughout the year, which I do pretty commonly, I don't have to then make up double time when I come back. It's just kind of like, okay, well, yeah, I already, easily covered my overhead in the first 2 days of the month. So yeah, it's okay if I take a week or more off. So when I talk about building your life, it really comes down to a couple of different topics. So first and foremost, I build it because I can block out my schedule. So I build out what my family needs of me first. Now, this is an old schedule that I put together a long time ago. I see patients a little bit more now than I used to back then, but you can see in this schedule, for example, that the green is where I saw patients. So those were my patient individual appointments and hours. And then everything else was just like other things that I would do throughout my day. And because I do have, children in 2 different schools, and between 3 kids, they're doing 5 different activities right now. I have to schedule things out, or else I can't keep up with all of it. And I make my schedule at the office happen after I figure out what my children need of me. And everybody here knows that. Everybody knows. I always tell them I've got a picture of my girls next to me here on my desk when I'm meeting with patients and talking to patients, and I always say to them, they are my full-time job. They allow me the ability to have a part-time practice here. So just know that my schedule does fluctuate based on what they need of me, versus me always having like a consistent schedule, like week after week after week. And patients are more than happy with it. They're thrilled that, they're like a part of my family. That these patients are just an extension of my own family, which is, again, just such an awesome, wonderful feeling. So block out your schedule, build out your schedule, but make sure that you match your market to that schedule, right? So who here looks like who here would fit more who your ideal patient is? Is it like the executive woman there on the left-hand side who's potentially might need to come see you at 7 a.m. or maybe have hours at 7 p.m.? Well, no, she's not going to fit my schedule, because the earliest that I can see a patient during the week is 9 a.m. And the absolute latest that I can see a patient during the week is 3 p.m. That's just those are my hard cutoff times to see patients. That's it. So I don't make any concessions to people outside of those times, because my children are more important. Me getting my children off the bus at home, a bus stop, is more important than necessarily, having that one new patient come into my practice. So I no longer make these accommodations in my own personal schedule just to take that one new patient on. Because you know what happens every single time? That new patient isn't one of your ideal patients. They aren't. If they don't fit, your ideal patient model, they don't fit your schedule, your market for your schedule, it's just not going to work, right? The gentleman on the right, he is like, he's an outdoor worker, right? And so are his hours probably, are they within my time that I have office hours? Probably not. He's probably already at work by like, 7 or 8 a.m. and he's probably getting off work at 5 p.m. And again, that's just difficult for me to follow those hours without having to then get childcare for my kids or, have to make some other accommodations. Now, the woman in the middle who is more the stay-at-home mom who may have gone and exercised after she dropped the kids off, yeah, that's an ideal person for me for her to come in, because her schedule is more flexible to fit in with my schedule. And so what I found over time was, even when I started this practice 5 years ago, I did start to make those accommodations, and I would find childcare, or my husband would make accommodations to his schedule. And then we just found over time that it was just exhausting all of us, and it wasn't worth it. And these patients that I was getting just weren't my ideal patient for me. So I found, you know what, I'm just going to be more strict with what I want and who I want to see in practice. And if that doesn't fit my model, I'm always very eager to refer patients to somebody else. So it's important to make sure that you have that match your schedule for what you need for your own life. And once you keep all this in mind, you'll build it and they'll come. And again, especially I'd say the last year and a half, I have believed this statement more than ever, because in 2020, which was an extremely volatile year in businesses, especially many small businesses, I was blessed to have a 35% increase in 2020 from 2019. And right now, 2021 I am up 70% from this time last year. So I'm blown away, because if anything, my schedule has gotten even more limited because my kids were distance learning and, all these other crazy things were happening in the world. And it was like, I built the schedule out and patients are like, yep, I'll be there. Whatever you're there, I'll be there. So you build it, they will come. And just remember that you can say no to patients too. As I was mentioning a little bit earlier, you don't have to take every single patient, a new patient. And, not every new patient is the right fit for you, nor are you the right chiropractor for every single person. And if I get that sense from a person over the phone when I talk to them, I am the first one to say, I don't think I'm the right chiropractor for you, but here are some other chiropractors in the area, and I think that they would be a better fit for what your needs are. And I'm always referring people to other chiropractors, because it doesn't mean I don't want them to be under chiropractic care. It's just not the right fit for my own practice. So that is the info in a nutshell. I know that it was kind of a lot, and I probably feel like I was just like talking a mile a minute. But just as a quick review again, we talked about how we can systemize things, talk about money, keep your overhead bar low, just be the doctor, and build your life around what you want it to be. Now, in a couple more slides, I have a link that I'll share with you that will give you access to some what are called my MicroPractice masterclass videos. So I'll share that link with you, and we can put it in like the chat bar as well, so that you can just click on that. But those videos will dive into some of this content even more, kind of next level, and they're totally free and no commitment, but just kind of a nice little gift for you guys for saying thanks for joining me. And if anybody who is on here now is saying, how can you help me, or how can this be more a part of my own practice, just to give you a quick rundown on what the MicroPractice is, it's an actual 8-week online class that I created. We have a private Facebook group where we collaborate together with other MicroPractice owners in the country. I do live weekly coaching with my clients. We will have at some point in-person events, some interview with the experts that we've created, and all of your MicroPractice questions answered. So a couple other nice little quotes or nice little things that people have said about MicroPractice concept is the perfect model for creating a profitable practice in a minimal amount of time. It's the way to go. Current economy, start small and simple, keeps the overhead low, but practice however you want, which is ultimately what we were all wanting to do. Is we became chiropractors to practice how we wanted to practice. Dr. Stephanie Mage talks about how it's simple, fun, and immensely profitable practice. And that, again, is kind of what I was trying to reiterate as we were talking all throughout these different slides. So as I talked about before, here's that link. So you would go to www.micropracticemasterclass.com. And we can, like I said, also put this into the chat bar so that you can have that available to you and click on that. You can get some more info. And I'd just like to end with a, closing slide of my cute kids there. So, so yeah, if there are any questions, I see people have written, I just started MicroPractice last month. Oh, that's great. Good job. Just started a single room MicroPractice last month. Yay. Cheaper than hiring another employee. Perfect. Thanks so much. Oh, that's so sweet. I use Sked. Awesome. Especially busy moms. Yay. That's awesome. What systems do you use for online schedule? Ooh, great. That's a great question. So for those of you, if you have any other questions, just like I said, put them into the chat bar. I'm reading through them as I can right now. So for my online schedule, so I have a very kind of low thrill EHR called Notero, N-O-T-E-R-R-O. They used to be called Soap Vault, and then they changed the name for some reason. Anyway, this system is $22 a month, and it includes a place for me to have clinical notes. I can create online forms for the patients to fill out. I can hold like a billing ledger if I need to for a patient there, but it has a scheduler on there as well, so that I can schedule patients on there and then link it to their clinical notes that I keep with them on that visit. The other really cool thing about it too is that it allows me to embed a hyperlink into my website. So if you go to my website, granitebaychiro.com, there's a button that says schedule with Dr. Margie. That button they click on then goes to this calendar dashboard and shows what available times I have open for people to schedule themselves online. So those are the only ways that I schedule. Either I might schedule people in advance, like during their visit if we have time. Otherwise, I'll say, okay, just go online and then schedule your next couple of visits, coming up here in the future online through my online link. Everybody does that. Everybody schedules dinner reservations online. Anything they can schedule online, they do today. So they love scheduling their chiropractic visits online. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Regarding linking money to goals, are you saying give the patient an option with care plans? For example, just adjusting the patients, the care will cost X amount, then increase the price based on number of therapy services provided, and then explain to the patient, the more we do, the faster the patient will meet their goals? Or would you say that the price of the care plan, or they take it and leave it? I see what you're saying. So when I say link money to goals, I mean, you are creating goals, health goals for that patient in your practice, right? Whatever those goals are, they want to achieve, weight loss, no pain, more flexibility, more range of motion, blah, blah, blah. Those are their goals. Whatever your clinical recommendations are, those are your clinical recommendations. So if you as the doctor are recommending adjusting therapies, services, well, you're then lining out how many of those that they're going to need, right? So I typically will do 6-month care plans at a time with patients. And in those 6 months, depending on the patient, I might see them 24 times in the month. I might see them 36 times in the month. But in my office, for example, I typically adjust, and I also have a low-level laser, a cold laser that I use. So if I adjust them, then it's one fee. If I'm adjusting them and using the laser, it's going to be another fee. So I don't give them options on the clinical recommendations necessarily, because those are my recommendations based on what their goals are. You want to get to these goals. Well, this is the way that I see that we achieve doing that as quickly as we can. So hopefully that answered that question. Post the name of the scheduling software. Oh yeah, I can put that into the chat bar. Notero.com. There it is. If there are, oh, thank you, Raymond. He answered it for me as well. Very, very interactive of us here. I really appreciate that. If there's any last minute questions, you can toss them in there really quick. If not, I think that's all I got. I think we're ending a couple of minutes early, maybe. I don't know, Christy. So you let me know if you need anything else from me.
I don't. And we are ending a couple minutes early. And people don't get upset by that because this is their lunch hour usually.
I know.
And I love it when that happens. That means everybody can breathe before they get back in there and see patients.
Seriously.
So I just wanted to remind y'all, so our next webinar is going to be next month with our dear friend Holly.
Yay!
I'm super excited, and she's going to be broadcasting live from her new home in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Newly Tennessee resident. I know, she's a Tennessean.
I know she doesn't live that far from me now. I'm so excited.
Awesome.
So we will have Holly. That is going to be our only webinar in September. And again, I am just, thank you guys. I know that we've kind of been spacing them out a little bit and everything with the crazy schedule, because starting next week, I'm on the road for 12 weeks straight and working on your webinars and the podcast and all the other fun stuff we got going
Wow.
on. And then we are starting 2 weeks later than that. We have Dr. Christina Petrucco Napoli. She was originally scheduled last month. She got sick, wasn't able to be here on her originally scheduled date. So we've rescheduled her in October. And it's a focus on women and chronic pelvic pain. In the next couple of weeks, you'll see us adding a whole bunch of new webinars to round out the end of the year. So thank y'all so much for being a part of the webinar today. If you have questions for Dr. Margie after we wrap up today, we posted all of her links so you can reach out to her. But if you need to reach out to her, just email me. Y'all have my email address. I'll forward that over to Dr. Margie and get y'all connected so she can answer all of your great questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys again so much for joining us. It's always fun to see you, Christy. Can't wait to see your face, an actual live person in front of me.
I know, I'm so excited because it's not that far away.
No,
in a month.
I know.
We're going to an unconvention.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
It is going to be awesome. So everyone have an amazing rest of your day, a fabulous week, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, everybody.